meat and curry, I'm your man. Cause how we all lose it is a mystery. It's like the changing of our wardrobes from a dire history. But it's the one making us not stop. 50 kilograms is all we've got to drop. La 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 la, la 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 la.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the latest series of the 50 kg Drop podcast, the Fat Dad series. My name's Ian Wellman. I've been returned after a short stint where my wife successfully gave birth to a wonderful child, and I am now a father to a little boy called Frank. And over the last 2 months, my sugar addiction got out of control, and I decided to eat biscuits throughout the entire time of that pregnancy and beyond. And all the progress I made at the end of last year hasn't gone, to be fair. I've managed to gain a wonderful 20 kilos. And this series is focusing on me as a father and a few other fathers, and how we're going to keep our weight down while managing the sleepless nights and the stress of becoming a father. Joining me today, we have the wonderful Mike Collins. Mike, hello, how are you?
I'm well, my friend. Congratulations.
Cheers. Thank you.
For the folks in the United States, biscuits are cookies, and 20 kilograms is 40 pounds, or no? Is it double? It's double.
It could be, yeah. Let me just check.
Or is it half? Is it half? 10 pounds.
20 kilos in pounds. No, it's 44 pounds.
Okay, 44 pounds.
Yeah, yeah. Which isn't ideal, Mike, to be honest. It was December time. I was coming up to the 50 kilos. I got to 48, and I said to myself, after a total year of like eating pretty much just meat and being really strict and that type of stuff, I actually started like falling apart a little bit. I couldn't get to 50 kilos. I was down to like one meal a day, and my head was just fried. It was not there. And throughout like the end of last year, I just had loads of people coming up to me going, you need to go and have some fun now before the baby comes, because you won't be able to have any fun when the baby comes, and this type of stuff, which all played into what I was trying to do. Yeah, and then December, I had a couple of weeks off, started drinking again, relaxing, but I was actually keeping the diet on. And then January came and we moved house. That was quite stressful. Couldn't really keep to my routine. Never really got back into my routine. The baby came on the 20th of Jan, and I was stuck in the old habits that I thought were dead were now back. And then you go through a long period of people going like, oh, can we come and see the baby? Should we meet him in a pub? And you're like, yeah, right, we'll have a few drinks. And then I haven't been able to get back in the swing of things really, but I have been able to keep all of my fitness habits up. So still working out. I'm actually working out more than ever, doing loads of weightlifting at the moment. I'm doing hot yoga still. I'm doing boxing. The only thing, moving house has meant that I'm not walking as much each day, which I need to fix. But yeah, I'm now in a position where I'm back and keen to get moving really.
Okay, so this is a good thing. I know you don't think it is right this minute, but it is a good thing. Hopefully we create it and turn it into a learning moment, learning time, for the audience, and moreover for you. Again, congratulations. It's a big life change, and it will never be the same, and it never should be. It's a wonderful thing, and you'll really enjoy it. But the weight thing and the sugar thing has a name. We talked about it when we talked about getting the band back together, cranking this baby back up, is that it's called intermittent rewards. And intermittent rewards is this unconscious or subconscious draw back to whatever it is. I've told you the story, but I'll tell it again for the audience, is that there's a company. It's so funny because Meta just got and Google, I think, but Meta definitely got indicted, and then they lost a trial about addictive processes for their social media, and a lot of it stemmed from a company in Los Angeles called Dopamine Labs, but they had to change their name because it was so egregious, and they worked with online platforms like Facebook and gambling people with the slot machines to figure out what was the draw to keep the little dopamine coming. And it really is a process by which the body understands and is acclimated to it. And it's intermittent is the main, that's why the term, it's intermittent, like you never know what's going to happen. Like your phone and Facebook, the buzzers and bells and announcements and messages are all different. Like that, it's almost like people say it all the time, like they have a mind of their own, and that's intentional. It's intentional in that people, like, if they don't know, they're always searching for that reward. And they found out on the slot machines that it's what isn't the big payoff that it's the close to the payoff they're looking for. They're looking for to be close to the payoff. Like even small wins just go by with no dopamine. They just keep right on playing. It's the close to the big play that they're looking for. And that's why they started adding more of those close to the big plays, the big wins on the machines. And what happened to you is simple. Somewhere in your mind, subconsciously, you knew this was going to happen. In the world of alcohol and drugs, it's called slips are planned, right? Slips are planned, meaning you knew subconsciously this was going to happen, and maybe even partially consciously. And there's a lot of fear in success in a lot of this. And I think you are a classic, I know I am a classic example, and I think you may, if this resonates with you, is that from you and your compatriots there, you guys are just crazy gifted guys living in central London with huge jobs. And the possibility from what you and I have discussed about your other stuff, now a successful father and maybe a new homeowner, things are going well in your life. And I always tell people I need to be watched when things are going well. We have to examine, we have to do what we didn't do the last round. We talked about the food and the exercise and the sugar and the addiction and all this other stuff, but we did not dig into your psyche, what you're actually numbing, what you're actually not wanting to feel, right?
This is interesting, Mike, because the reason why I'm back is if I think back to the successful diets I've done, when I boxed, right, in the early days, I would get down to like 120 kilos again. And in my head, I'm going, you were quite comfortable at 136. You've got 14 kg to play with. Why don't you just put it all back on? And it would be like a matter of weeks to me getting back to that point.
Yeah.
When I was down in the 120s, like 122, that's nearly at the 50 kg. My head was like 136 is like a number in your. I don't know why it's a number in my head, but it's like you can get back there. You're fine. You'll be fine at that weight as well. All your clothes still fit. Do you know what I mean?
Now, real quick stop. What it is your body this is one of the most important studies I don't think in our lifetime we'll be able to know how the limbic brain can make the transition from the deep limbic brain that only needs a dopamine hit. That's all it cares for. It's not prejudice. It only cares about the relief of a dopamine hit, the soothing of a dopamine hit. And when I say dopamine for the audience, I mean dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, GABA, oxytocin, adrenal glands, endorphin, and cannabinoid receptors. The entirety of the brain and body reward system is affected by sugar. And your body is translating and your midbrain is translating it into a conscious thought that you just described. Again, we're not going to have the diagnostic tools to understand this for a long time, but just know that it's true and that our job is to break apart that understanding that when you have those thoughts, you have to say, I must be needing to soothe something. Must need to calm my nerves about something. A relationship with a parent or a wife or a boss or a friend or whatever, or too much chaos with the pregnancy and the move. I need to be soothed. And no matter how much exercise I do, it's not enough. It doesn't change that. It's not powerful enough to shut it all down for 20 minutes. That's what I'm really looking for. And you've got to sit down and you've got to take a deep breath and you got to go to that sauna place and you got to go to yoga and you got to meditate and you got to find other ways to self-soothe. But you also have to ask yourself, you can literally create oxytocin and feel one of the feel-good chemicals by just rubbing your chest and your belly and say, Ian, what do I really need right now? What do I feel? It's so hard for us guys to answer that question. What do I feel? What am I feeling right now? And then go back during the day where did the boss chew you out at 9 in the morning and now it's 9 at night and you want the soothing, the ice cream or whatever, you know? And this is the work, okay? I tell people this all the time. This is the work. What we did before was an education around the metabolic processes of sugar, right? And we had fun. And a lot of times that's enough. But when you get to this situation, in order for it to be long term, you have to do this other part of it. And it's not easy for us guys, you know?
Like a lot of people talk about living in restriction, right?
Yeah.
And is it that once you let something in, then it takes over because you've been restricting it for so long? Because I'll probably explain that a little bit better. So when I started drinking in December, I went from 3 beers to 5 beers, knocking on the door of a petrol garage to try and get a slice of cake because my head was going, you need to eat cake, right? It wasn't that I was a paralytic drunk. It was just like that was the chain of events. If you've let it in, you've got to go and get it. And
Yeah.
I was doing that. I was knocking on doors, doing that sort of thing. And is it because my brain's going, you only let yourself have these one windows, you might as well go completely nuts? And then that then created a load more habits that just got worse and worse. And because the cake didn't kill me, then it becomes like a normal thing to eat anyway. Fast
Yeah.
forward 20 kilos in 4 weeks and I'm back to where I started. So all of that is the bit. And is the argument then to say, actually, if you went through a diet that has more balance, surely that doesn't happen because you're used to it. And I get, for me personally, I don't think that would work because I need to eat until I'm flipping completely satiated, which takes a lot. So if that's cookies, then it's 20 packets instead of just one. So it's
Yeah.
not really the right idea for me. But do you see my point? A lot of people, there's a lot of angles of the health and fitness world that talks about not restricting and not doing that sort of stuff for that reason. So you don't blow out and the wheels come off and then they come really off. See what I mean?
Yeah, no, I understand what you're asking, and it's happening again. What's happening is you're asking about food and the processes, and the restriction part is very interesting, and it's an evolving science that I think the eating disorder people have wrong. I think the emotional eating people have wrong. They just don't understand that this is a drug and it needs a substance use disorder recovery. And I want to, gently, like any good therapist would do, move you back to what the problem was with me telling you need to feel something. Okay. And it's like what you're describing is called a progressive illness and it doesn't talked about much anymore. It should be where it's going to get worse. It never gets better. If you stop now if you do completely cold turkey dry drunk for 10 years and start up again, it's going to be like you never stopped. You'll be blottoed in 4 beers, you know what I mean? Because it was like you never stopped drinking. And the same thing is with sugar. It's the same thing. And so what we have to and I have to keep returning you gently to this idea that you know, what was emotionally going on in your life at that time. The only thing a bender is, the only thing December for you was an extended 20-minute respite from the emotional stuff, right? It's just a long-term one. There was too much going on, and you have a pattern developed over 30 some odd years that works to soothe you. It works to soothe how you feel very quickly and with no complaints and no work, no effort. You don't have to walk, run, lift weights, box. You don't have to do anything except eat this stuff or drink that stuff. And it works, and the feelings stop. They're blunted. They're calmed down. And you're never going to get away from it. I can give you a little bit of hope in that David Goggins even says, all of this kind of change process starts in the body first. So you've done all the right things. You have the one outlet, which is what most people always focus on. They focus on eat less and restrict the white stuff and exercise more. And that will work for a time. That's one soothing method. But you've got to get in place a bunch of other soothing methods. And moreover, you've got to be able to recognize what you're feeling when you're feeling it, right? You've got to understand that. You've got to be open to it. You've got to understand, like, what are the emotions that are. I told you this story before, and it's probably worth repeating this. At 50 years, well, 40 some odd years ago, 30 some odd years ago, whatever, a therapist gave me a feelings list, and he wanted me to start to identify these feelings, and there's 50 things on it. That's where the 50 came. There was 50 things on it. The only thing I knew was hungry and horny. That was it. The other ones I could not identify. I could not like say that I was mildly upset with someone, that I was angry at someone, that I was like disappointed in someone. Like I just couldn't. Like I couldn't make the connection in my, like, intellectually we know these things, but it's the movement from the head to the heart, move them into the body and start to understand where they're coming from so that you can help to feel them out. My job is not to make you cry. My job is to re-explore your childhood, find out where the weight thing began, what it was all about. And God forbid we have to go through some of that old trauma and whatever. But for you, with the big life that you have, possibly you may have done some organic work back then or now or whatever. But, just getting through the everyday stresses and strains of a new child, a new house, a big job, and the possibility of starting something new in a career. It's a lot. And your old coping mechanisms have outlived themselves. They do not work anymore, and they're decimating your body. So we have to install new ones. And while we're installing new ones, we have to start identifying these older types. Or what is actually happening, because it's really not anything about the food itself. It's really not anything about the alcohol itself. It's about, why am I using alcohol when my brilliant brain knows and has made commitments not to do it, And why am I overriding that for the craving, or the feeling manifests itself as a craving for the stuff, right? Another one of those, how in hell's name is it doing that? How
Mine
is it?
isn't cravings. It's like I have an unconscious reaction to get up and go and buy something and put it in my mouth, and then I don't realize I've done it until it's done. It's
Okay,
that
so
bad.
do you kind of black out a little bit? Like you're
So it's
now,
just not here. Yeah. I,
now you're eating it, and now or you weren't and now you are, and you're like, how did I get here, kind of thing?
Saturday morning I woke up. No, Sunday. Yeah, I went down to get my hair cut, and the only place that was open was Greg's. And I walked past Greg's, which is a baker's over in the UK. They sell like sausage rolls and stuff like that, which you probably don't have in America either. They have donut shop. And it was cold, and I had shorts on. So I was like, well, it's the only place that's open. I went, I can't go to Greg's. Let me go to the coffee shop around the corner. I'll go to the coffee shop. And then 20 seconds later, I was in Greg's eating a sausage roll. And I'm like, what am I doing? Like, you said you're going to be meat only today. Like, what are you doing? Yeah, that then turned into something else as well. I can't remember what I did later, but
So
It's as if it's like it's in your head and then it manifests itself straight away.
I told you about the doc I'm working with, the retired surgeon, OBGYN, who's actually also doing a podcast like yours on YouTube. And one time, the same thing happened. So it's identical, really, in a lot of ways. So she's at the gym and she's got a trainer, a full-time trainer, a trainer. And she had lost 4 or 5 pounds, right? And she's like excited. And she finds herself at the store buying crap and then eating it and binging. And I'm like, it took us the entire hour to realize that she had visited her mother in an Alzheimer's care unit, a memory care unit, and her mother's, although she's half there, but she was the half that was there was the denigrating part, the you're not good enough part. No matter that you became a surgeon, that you were once Miss San Diego, that all the accomplishments mean nothing because here's your own mother supposed to love you, and she's saying nasty things to her, right? That was in the early morning before she went to the gym and got the good news. And like, it took us the whole hour for us to figure out what was she really feeling that day? What was going on with her? And I'm here to ask you the same question about Saturday morning or Sunday morning. What was going on in your life at the time? What were you feeling? And again, it's a hard question to ask guys. They don't want to answer it. They don't get it. They don't want to, they've never been there. Girls, when they're talking to each other, they're like, how did that make you feel? And whatever. But guys, not so much. So
Do you know what? Actually, I went out on Saturday night to the 40th and I didn't drink. So in the preparation of me coming back, I wanted one sober weekend because I didn't want to start with a hangover because that was really difficult the last time. So Friday and Saturday, I stayed off the alcohol. I woke up really early to go to the barber's before it opened because the guy was meant to meet me there to cut my hair early. That's a long story. But I drunk a load of 0% beers the night before and I slept bad. I couldn't sleep because it was like I'm pretty sure they're like laced with loads of sugar, but I had like 5 or 6 of them and I genuinely couldn't sleep. I was like, I'm just sitting there staring away. And then I woke up, went down the high street, went to do that sort of stuff. And then I had boxing afterwards. And I was kind of like half going, where's this hairdresser guy? Because he's meant to be early so I could go to boxing as well, which then left me in a bit of a like, where am I? And then I was too cold. I was like, why are you wearing shorts? It's freezing. All that was going through my head, but it wasn't anything deeper than that, I don't think. I was quite tired.
see, our job is to get a little deeper than that. I mean, there is some, goodness, I guess, in what you're explaining. There was frustration. There was upset with yourself. There was a spiral of not, I didn't do good or I haven't done well or something. Would that be fair?
Yeah. Yeah. I just woke up and went to like, went to get my hair cut, right? It shouldn't be that stressful.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But you're also on a hangover. I didn't get the order completely right, but
Hangover, yeah, sugar hangover, maybe. Yeah.
that night before
Yeah.
is why you didn't sleep.
I was drinking 0% beers and I had like 6 of them because I was in like a round and everyone was just giving me one. So,
Yeah.
and usually I just drink water when I'm on 0% instead of 0%. But where it
I
was like
wonder,
the first weekend without alcohol,
or
actually having a beer makes sense.
I don't know enough about those things to know if they have carbs in them. I think they
Oh, it's
do.
loads of carbs. Yeah, yeah. Some of
Yeah.
them are not the one I was drinking, but there's one from Erdinger, which they drink after marathons to replenish all your sugars, salts, that sort of stuff. So
Okay.
it's like an isotonic drink. But yeah, there's the sugar content in 0% beer is, I'm pretty sure they replace the alcohol with sugar to sweeten it up.
Is that right?
Um,
Oh my God, I gotta look into this now. You got me kind of curious.
take a
So,
look at Erdinger 0% beers. They're crazy sugar. Like they're worse than Lucozade. They're worse than Monster.
okay, so you kind of know
Uh,
now you're in withdrawals a little bit here, right? You're withdrawing from sugar. You can't sleep, and there's a lot going on in your life, right? And what worked before when you were 10, 15, 5, is to have more sugar, have sugar. And look, it's almost impossible to get off sugar in that way that you're describing, because you can't load up on those kind of carbs and sugar and then expect that your physical body, let's leave the feelings aside for a second, your physical body won't be craving them. You know what I mean? So you probably got to go back to water in those circumstances. Yeah. And
Yeah,
so,
I wasn't putting my mind to it as well. Like Saturday night, I was just trying
yeah.
to stay sober, and I successfully did that. So that was a win. But yeah, there's 3.6 grams of sugar per 100 mil of,
Oh
so
my,
18 grams of sugar in a 500 mil bottle, which is a bottle of beer. It's huge.
no way. And you did 5 or 6 of them,
No, I didn't do that one. That's the bad one.
but still
Well,
it's pretty high.
I could probably. What was it? Was it Asahi? Maybe Asahi. Was it Asahi? Yeah, 2.97 in 330 mil K, and then 6.1 grams per bottle. It's pretty big. But some of them are crazy. Like they're meant to be like a Lucozade.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's like a little bit of the hair of the dog kind of thing, It's
It was
like,
like I was wired though at sleep. I was like staring at the ceiling. I just
well,
couldn't
I
get
mean,
to
that's
sleep.
the kind of it's one of the effects. I mean, it would be the effect of, sleep is definitely something that's interrupted by sugar and stuff. No, that could have been half physical right there. But honestly, one of the most movements forward that you and I did is the time where you talked about being in a bar sober, playing darts, which you like, right? And that
I
you
think I
found,
have a new one actually. I have a new
okay,
moment which is similar to that. So let's talk December.
yeah,
December to me is the end of our end of financial year is end of November,
okay,
and it's a time where you kind of work your ass off till November, and then you have a switch off period. And it's not really switch off. It's like the first
yeah,
2 weeks you work quite hard, then you have a Christmas break and it's off. By that time of the year, it was December the 2nd, I think it was, and I
mm,
went on to book a week's holiday off and realized I still had 20 days holiday. In the UK, you have a certain amount of holidays.
yeah,
But that basically means that I'd had the equivalent of a week and a half off prior to that.
hmm,
And that made me go, and then I looked at all the stuff I had to do still with all the customers I've got. And I was
mm,
like, there's no way I'm gonna be able to take it like even 3 of these days. Like I'm just totally slammed.
yeah,
And then my head went into this like pathway of being negative again. I won someone an award at the end of work thing, and I actually found that offensive and that type of stuff because I was in such a bad headspace. At the start of last year, I said to myself, I'm gonna try and be as calm as possible. But I also then at the end of the year had house move, baby, everything like this,
yeah,
plus all of that. And December's a time where prior to us meeting, from December the 1st, I would be drinking pretty much every day throughout December because the whole of the UK goes into like, let's
hmm,
just meet up. And historically, I would meet up with absolutely everyone I haven't seen all year in that 1 month.
yeah,
This year, I got to the 16th. So I was like, the 16th, I'm going to stay on it. And I was sitting there going, this could be my first sober December.
mm,
And all of that got into this dark headspace of like, this can't be life. Like, you can't just be working all your life and just working and just focusing on work and prioritizing work all the time. Like, you haven't even taken your holidays. Like, your missus being pregnant, you should have been away more. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Then the other hand of my head's like, we've just moved house. You need to work because we need to pay for all the stuff that's going in the house and this type of stuff. Then it's like you've got a baby on the way, so you need to sort this all stuff. And all of that just went through my brain in December, and that's where the crash came. And just before December, in November, start of November, I decided to go properly strict on the diet to try and get to the 50 kg drop. And I shifted like maybe 25 pounds, I think it was, in 1 month. And be it that I'd already lost 40 kilos, right? So 80 something pounds. Doing that
yeah,
was extreme, right? And that then got me back in the headspace of this like all or nothing like mindset. And I couldn't get to the 50 kg drop. I got like 2 kilos a day. I just couldn't get there. And I think December for me is this breakdown every year, and that's the only way to describe it. It's like a complete mental breakdown. I have to completely unwind, and everything I've been working towards just goes. And then I
Mm.
blow out and I exploded. I started drinking every day in December and started doing all this sort of stuff. And all the stuff I've been regressing since the start of the year. Then usually January is the time for me to then reset that. And then in my head, I was like, if I give myself to the 16th, January the 1st, I can get back on it. And then Emma started getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger at that point. And you're sitting there going, fuck, the baby's actually going to be here. So I might as well carry on until the baby. We've only got a couple of weeks to the baby. And then on the 20th, the baby came. And then it was like trying to change anything at that point was a disaster. And that kind of 2 weeks when you have the kid, you're kind of sitting indoors all day, which is the perfect recipe for me to just balloon. And but I hadn't actually sorted my head out right at that point because you're just in like fight or flight mode the whole time.
Yeah.
And maybe it's all intrinsically linked to me being in the same company for 15 years and doing the same job for 15 years. And I've got loads of like high standards in my head about that I'm constantly battling. I've changed roles last year to try and accommodate this. And maybe it's a little bit deeper than that. But yeah, I get to this, December time is the time that all of them impulses just become completely uncontrollable. And I actually thought I had them under control to the 16th. Then my head was going, this is like you're going to kick yourself if you don't take this window. Like everyone's been telling you that you've left it to December, and that window's now carried on for 3 months.
Okay, so look, this is great. This is really good work, and this is a really good evaluation, assessment, overview of the pattern and everything, you know. It really is. And what you need to do now is to think about like, and a lot of it's cultural, I think, is, you know, what goes on there. I mean, it's kind of similar here. You should see it in the Philippines. I mean, literally the entire country shuts down for 3 weeks. They have something called the 13th month. Employers pay the entirety of a month as a Christmas bonus every. It's like it's crazy. That's the Christmas bonus called the 13th month. So I mean, it's common what you're talking about, right? And you grew up in it. It's a cycle, right? Like any other cycle, right? And grabs you big time this year. And it was over, or you know, part of, in the middle of your working through the real issues of, look, let's be honest, you adopt this lifestyle, you are going to be in the 1/10 of 1%, definitely lower than the 1% of people who believe as you and I do. Or I think that you're coming to believe that likely sugar is not good for human beings. It definitely doesn't feel like it's good for you, and possibly alcohol, right? And we'll cross that bridge later. But, and now we're starting to double back on this thing and start to understand why the culture has developed such an obsession with it. And moreover, like, what biologically, metabolically is it to me, right? And I think I think intellectually you understand what I've been describing and what I'm describing now, but now we have to bring it down to the feeling level, the level of being able to separate where you were on the 16th and what was going on, and this entire, I don't know what you want to call it, but this whole like intersection, this crash into, and old tapes, you know, this is, I don't really never like that term, but these old tapes of your life and how you should live it, and the old rational excuses as to why you're going to get your dopamine, your relief, your feel good, your I deserve it because you're not going to have another time. All of these ideas are old ideas that I think you're out, well, I know that you're outgrowing, and most people, they need to outgrow them in order to go to the next level. But you first got to identify them and make sure they don't happen, as you said, unconsciously, right? Because it just doesn't work anymore. The process doesn't work anymore. It puts weight on you, you know, upsets you. It worked well growing up, whether it was a chaotic home or a, you know, a childhood where you felt out of place, you were a taller guy, whatever it was. you learned a pattern of soothing that now no longer serves you, and you have to have new ones and strong ones at that. It's obvious that your workout schedule is not enough. It was enough for, 48 pounds or 48 kilos or whatever, but it was not enough, is not enough to sustain you long term, right? And so we have to figure out whatever, if you like that sauna or if you like breath work or whatever, meditation, yoga, prayer, whatever it is, playing with the baby would be an awesome one. Walking the dog. Yeah, I think you have a dog. All of these different ways that you need to soothe yourself while you walk through understanding what and uncoupling the soothing from substances. If you start uncoupling the soothing from substances and do that exercise, the exercise where you have the cravings or you feel the unconscious, it's like someone who feels a epileptic seizure coming on. They kind of know what is going to happen. Some of them sit down and so they don't fall down, and they feel it coming on. So if you feel that unconscious Saturday or Sunday morning thing coming on where you might be going in there and unconsciously doing something, you've got to identify that and then use the tools, which is call somebody or whatever, do something drastically different. I used to call it, and I still do, a pattern interrupt. Tony Robbins calls it a pattern interrupt. You have to literally clap your hands in front of your face and say, what am I walking into this shop for? I don't want to walk into this shop. And break the pattern, understand the pattern, get to know the pattern as it comes up, and then, go to yoga instead of getting your hair cut or whatever it is, go home and play with the baby. It's like this recognition of that unconsciousness is the work, the separating and then the other ways of soothing. That's the work, right? It's not about the food. It's not about the sugar or the alcohol. It's about understanding when you need that soothing and why, and then beginning the process. Like one of my contemporaries is right. You were in the process and you had done very well in the biochemical repair of your brain. The long streak that you had was largely because you had healed your brain and your body enough that you didn't really, and you were coupling it with strong exercise. So you didn't really, you had your soothing down, you had your healing down, but it will not last long term until, because those feelings, those frustrations are still there. And you described it perfectly. I wasn't able to work out. I wasn't able to walk as much. I wasn't, all of these things conspire against you. So your one primary of physical exercise was not enough. We've got to add other methods. But moreover, you've got to recognize that when it's happening, when it's about to happen, and then interrupt it with something fresh, splash water on your face. It doesn't matter. So whatever will interrupt the unconscious pattern, right? It's not rocket science, and it's not Tony Robbins, although Tony Robbins' stuff is very similar. The pattern interrupt is very similar. And this is the hard part. You're left to sit alone with your feelings. And sometimes you just got to feel them and then go exercise and then go to yoga or whatever, or go play with the baby. Your body's not going to give you more than you can handle. There may be tears. There may be like days. I think the fear of most people, and it's very real, and you can help me with this if it's not, something, but I think it is that you don't have time to fall apart. You don't have time to have days on end of being blue and feeling some of these feelings, even though it comes in waves, like you're not there all the time. You'll feel blue and you'll go up, it comes in waves. I think I've told you my story, and it probably bears repeating now, is that when this happened to me, what you're going through, the final, I don't want to say final because I still go through it sometimes, but the big one where, or I was getting a divorce, I'd moved out of the house and I finally stopped eating flour. My wife was a great cook, and so I was off of sugar and caffeine, and I had been off alcohol for 4 or 5 years, or long, probably 4 or 5 or 6 years, and I moved into a house by myself, and my television addiction, I threw an old television that I took with me against the fireplace and it broke. And so I didn't have a TV and I had stopped eating flour. And then the beginning of what I call my dark night of the soul began. And luckily, I was in a place where I had cultivated a therapy group, a therapist, a sponsor, a recovery group, and a men's group of people. And literally they just huddled around me, or and supported me during my parents, my father, they were so worried about me. My father flew 1,500 miles to find out what was going on. And it was like I would cry, and I would like literally like an hour a day be crying, and then I'd go out and no exaggeration, I made more money in a 6 month period in my 30s than I had made my entire adult life, because I would go home and cry, I'd go to my meetings, I'd go to my friends, I'd, whatever. I'd process these emotions, and then I would go to work and, kill it. And so it kind of ebbs and flows. It's not all the time, but it lasted for like 6 months of this crying and up and down and whatever. And I tell people that above the birth of my children, above the birth of my children, there was no and was no more important, including getting sober before that, no more important event in my life. Really, this comeuppance of what I had been tamping down with at first sugar and caffeine and flour when I was young, and then turning to alcohol and drugs. And I did a lot of drugs. I mean, you can't name one that I didn't do. And, tripping. I mean, it was like I said, I mean, and I was a bad drunk, like a lot of pee the bed, crash cars drunk. And so I was anesthetizing the feelings of growing up in a chaotic, alcoholic, physically and emotionally violent home. And so what I'm trying to get at here for you is that there's something locked, there's something that you're avoiding, likely. It may not be as drastic as I've described my own, but it really is something that I think you're right on the verge of. It's right on the verge of coming up, and I think it, maybe unconsciously, what's about to happen. Part of it. You felt part of it during your early 6 months of dropping 48 kilos, but you went to the gym and worked out, and it went away for a little bit. And right now, and I hate this phrase worse than any phrase I've ever used, you got to lean into it if it's there. You have to lean into that feeling of worthlessness, unworthiness, hurt, anger, fear, pain. I akin it, this is terrible, but it's true. Popping a pimple. So, like, if you pop a good pimple and it splats on the mirror and there's blood, it's gone in a day or two. It's healed right up. But if you pop that and it only gets a little dribble out, it's there for another week or two. You know what I mean? It just keeps being irritated, right? It's never out. And so this is kind of where you're sitting, right? You're sitting in this place that there's things to process and ways to process, healthy ways to process stuff that's been going on with you. And the unconscious knowing that you have anesthetized some of this over the years, and being aware of when it is and when it comes up, and starting to separate this from your regular life, is the work. And I keep using that phrase, and there's a woman I love, Byron Katie, who kind of coined the term the work, and she talks about this kind of stuff. But it's the work. The work is to delve into your personage there, and your feelings. And again, it sounds woo woo, and it sounds soft for guys. Honestly, if I hadn't seen this in, 1,000 people, if I hadn't like walked through with 1,000 more people, 300 or 400 of them one-on-one, then I would, try and give you a different method or whatever. But I don't think there is a different method personally.
I just think it's conscious of time, because I know I've got to go in a minute, but because your head obviously goes to all these times where you have been kind of felt that worthlessness and that type of stuff. But I also in my head just go, get on with it. That wasn't that bad.
There
And
is a school of that, and I ascribe to it my whole life. And I find the people that do that, there's just an underlying thing. It doesn't, the pimple's not out, the crap, it's not out, it's not processed. And you always go and find new stuff. You always go and find new stuff. It's whack-a-mole. In other words, you might all of a sudden, okay, you're going to start your own company, or you're going to get another job, or big job, or whatever, or you're going to find a little girlfriend, or you'll find some kind of chaos. You'll start gambling. It's called addiction transfer is what it's called. I think largely a lot of this is about accepting that you're an addict, that this is a recovery from addiction, and then all those things apply, so yeah, it's hard, and I wish we weren't running out of time, but we are. I want you to think about what I've said. All I say is let the information light on you, and your homework is to start a feelings journal. How were you feeling, especially if it's before any substance use, whatever, sugar, alcohol, you know what I mean?
yeah, fine. I'm back on carnivore, so
Again, what I was getting at here is you can go 6 months on that. You're a good exercise. You can quell it down, and you can quote unquote get on with it. But what's going to happen in 6 months at 48 kilos again? That's what we're trying to avoid. That
yeah.
reward.
Okay,
All right, buddy.
Mike, thank you very much for your time. See you next week.
We've got some diet plans, health scans, sugar bans, fitness fans, PTs, injuries, laying off the Chinese, ball games, gym chains, protein gains and skin tight tops, and we ain't gonna stop until we hit the 50k. Drop, 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 drop. No excess fat, no FAT, no curry bag, no guarantee. Rough or buff, lean on me. We'll end up as fit as a bear.